Welcome to Top Shelf, where we seek truth,
opinion,
perspective,
and we seek solutions.
Yo, podcast number 2. Yo, it's been a roller coaster. Definitely shout out to Ernest Digital Media. Awesome, brother.
I know him.
We all know him every month.
My boy brother from another mother.
Yeah.
But yo, brothers, how you guys been? And when I ask that question, I want you to think about, because everybody asks you how you doing, and our normal response is like, "Yo, I'm good." Like, how are you feeling mentally?
I love the question.
I do what I do, baby.
I'm feeling good. I'll start off. I'm feeling good. Despite everything that's going on, I feel good. Mentally, I'm good. Physically, I'm good. Health-wise, last time I checked it, I'm good. I feel good. You know, peace is something that I've really strived for to have in my life. And having God in the center of my life. So having God in the center of my life, it equates to peace. It equates to his love.
Wow.
So he's not going to cause chaos in my life. His goal is to equip peace. So I have so much peace no matter what is going on. So I'm good, bro.
I'm loving it. What about you, bro?
I would say for me, it's a day by day thing, honestly, because it's like when you are working in this time frame during this pandemic, and I'm not originally from here, I'm from Kansas City, so it's like, hey, let's get it. We didn't win the Super Bowl, but hey, you know what I'm saying? We still got the best ribs. So basically, though, I am myself. Like it's a day by day. I can say that. Just being away from my family is a hard thing, but I do have my own family here, which is my wife. So I love that I get to spend time with my family, with you guys who are like family to me now. And I think you guys keep me grounded.
Love that.
And I'm grateful. I would say I'm grateful more than anything. I'm grateful. I'm thankful. I count my blessings every day. I pray with my wife. And more than anything, that's just where I am right now. It's day by day. But all in all, I know you said not to say this, but I'm good.
Nah, but for me, I'm amazed. I'm just enjoying life. I think doing this podcast every week and having conversation with my brothers, I'm finally living in my purpose.
Right.
And I think that's the most beautiful thing. And get to do it with my brothers, but also get to do it with my family, get to do it with my wife, and add it on more people. I think I'm finally understanding my purpose. And while I'm understanding, there's a lot of things that's been like going on in the world. I really want to talk about COVID. We talked about it last podcast.
We touched it.
We touched it. I really want to go like in depth around the corner, to the left, to the right. I really want to touch on COVID.
Right.
Like from Jeff, like your expertise. I want to use the word expertise
Putting
for
that
my
pressure
people
on me.
for my people in the back to make sure he's incredible. What is your take on COVID?
COVID. Where do I begin? So with COVID, so if you don't know, a little background for myself, I work in the healthcare industry.
Okay.
So that's what I do. That's my full time. You know, I don't deal with patient care, which means that I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a CNA. I actually work more in the informatics side, AKA IT. The IT side, to keep it simple,
Very important.
of healthcare. But I also work in the research department, right? So I work more with that department as far as research is being done. So now we got COVID. COVID is the center of everything that's going on in healthcare. And even at my job, I can't stay away from it, even if I wanted to. So I see like a lot of the data, all the numbers, everything that's going on. So I kind of have a different perspective compared to maybe some of the average people when it comes to COVID. And so I was actually looking at a report today, actually, that the United States, we're close to 500,000 deaths from COVID.
Literally.
Can you
like
say that one more time?
500,000.
Wow.
So you're looking at about, I think it was like 480. I think it was the number.
Yeah.
28 million people has been affected by COVID, which means they've tested positive.
Absolutely.
Right? So when you do the math, you're looking at, okay, there's about close to 500,000 people died from COVID, but it's only been 28 million who tested positive. Like, that's kind of like a small number. But we got to factor in that 28 million, there are numbers or there are people who were asymptomatic or didn't have any symptoms.
Okay.
But there are a lot of people who've gotten sick. And you're talking about weeks and months inside the hospital. And one of the things that doesn't often get talked about is that the long-term effects with COVID. So there are a lot of people who have tested positive for COVID. They were sick. They were in the hospital. Obviously, we know COVID, it affects our lungs, right? And there are people who, though they may not have COVID in their system anymore, they're still recovering months afterwards from COVID. Trouble breathing. There are people who are dealing with hallucination still.
Wow.
There are people who just dealing with just off and on smell as far as what they can smell, what they can taste. So
in 2021.
2021. Okay. So there's long-term effects, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we got to think what it does to the psyche. You know, like, okay, I'm told I don't have COVID anymore. So I'm home now. I'm going back my normal business, right? Going to work, spend time with my family, maybe going to the park, going jogging, gym, whatever it is, whatever your normal routine is. But it's much more of a struggle for me to get up a flight of stairs because I have trouble breathing. You know, I'm not able to sleep as comfortable because pressure feeling in my chest, or I'm just having trouble breathing. Food I used to love to eat, it tastes slightly different. You know, I'm still suffering from migraines and headaches. There's these long-term effects that does occur that doesn't often get talked about, that I hear from my colleagues, that I hear from other people who I know who has really been impacted by COVID from their health, from that type of perspective.
So what you're saying is like their quality of life is changed.
Most definitely.
Dramatically.
Definitely.
Do you think the media should be responsible of having more conversation about the long term of COVID?
The thing with the media is, so when we look at the media is going to tell you what they want you to hear.
Okay.
Right? Not what you should hear. So you know, with the media, you're not always going to get the full truth. You're never going to get the full pie. You might get a couple of slices, but you're not getting the whole pie.
Okay.
So do I feel like the media? Yes, most definitely, because we need to hear the truth. The truth is still the truth, right?
But the truth in their quote unquote narrative. Okay.
This is why, to me, in my personal opinion, it's very important to do your research, do your homework.
Okay.
You know, really find out what's going on. You know, like I said, we hear COVID all the time, and I gave the example of these numbers. So there's the side of the argument that COVID is not that serious. It's only like a small percentage people who dying from COVID, right? Oh, you're going to recover. You know, there's the myth that if you're healthy and have a strong immune system, you're going to be fine. Because there have been people, which is more of a smaller number, but there have been people who relatively been healthy who still died from COVID.
Right.
Wow.
Like, I know somebody who, I don't know personally, but I know someone who knows somebody, one of my mans, where he was like, dude was built. You know me, I love to work out. This guy was chiseled, built, healthy. He was during the early stage of the pandemic, he died from COVID. You know, so it's because it's so random on how it affects people and what's going to happen to you, as far as like, are you going to be in the hospital on a vent, having a machine breathe for you?
Wow.
Or you just have this quarantine for 14 days sitting at home, you know, with eating some popcorn, watching Netflix. You know, it's so random that's what, to me, what makes COVID so dangerous.
Right. And I was going to say, Jeff, so you talked about the deaths and how many people are affected. What about the people that are recovering from it? Like, why isn't the media talking about the recovery, like the cases, the people that are literally walking away from it? Like, in living.
Now, I think I have seen some media outlets
Mhm.
who have interviewed and talked with people who've had COVID and have struggled with the recovery process.
Mhm.
And I've seen where there's been, doctors and nurses, basically clinicians who really have been designated to take care of COVID patients
Okay.
that have discussed it. But what we often hear is just the numbers, the vaccine, and obviously how it has affected the economy, how it affected the education system.
So not in
Interesting.
regards to the day-to-day life of an individual.
Correct.
Yeah. Interesting.
Wow.
Interesting.
From what I've seen and from what I've researched and from what I, like I said, for me, when it comes to COVID,
Right.
I can't, you guys know me. I don't play around with COVID.
That's a fact. I need to have a mask when I'm in this house.
Listen, it's not a game.
Absolutely.
It's not, you went where? Hold on. I'm
Yeah.
going to put that mask. Double it up. Like 2 plots. You know what I'm saying?
Drink this bleach real quick.
And talking about that long-term effect or talking about the individual, do you think, and Fred, do you think it affects your marriage or relationship?
I think with COVID, I gained a wife during COVID, right? So
Shout out to Black Love.
because we out here, BET. So
BT hasn't sponsored us, so
not yet anyway.
not yet.
But
But we
I
looking.
feel like it's definitely for the single folk. It's made the dynamic a whole lot harder because a lot of people are not they're not interacting with people as much. So it's like, New York is the city where, everybody, it's hard, it's grimy, and like a lot of people are in their own bubble. And me being from the Midwest, I'm so like used to saying like, oh, hey, hi, hey, how you doing? It was hard before, but now it's even harder because everybody's at home, For my marriage, I think it's helped us, of course, because we have no choice but to look each other in the face and really communicate and be honest and understand what this means. We've been doing more future planning than anything. Been talking more about legacy, about where do we see ourselves? Whereas like, not to say that we wouldn't have been doing that before, but I think like you come face to face because everybody's inside. Like you feel.
Isn't that from? I love my wife. And we have an amazing experience.
Right.
I can have, in addition to you, like we able to talk, we're able to have conversation and talk about the future. But I really want to talk about like that single person that would use the lounge or would use that environment or even walking in the park and say, yo, ma, or hey, can I take you for coffee?
Excuse me, miss.
Or even,
excuse me, miss. I
What's
saw you
your
from
name?
across the room.
excuse me, miss.
That's it.
Listen.
It's I feel like people, from my experience, from my purview, I feel.
I also want you, not to interrupt you, bro.
Yeah.
I also want you to talk about, like, we're talking about the long term.
The long term.
Go ahead.
I want to say people are self-medicating more than anything.
Ooh.
And by doing that, I mean like alcoholism. We know this. Alcoholism is on the rise.
Yes.
More than anything. Like, I don't even see liquor stores card anybody anymore.
Oh.
Ooh.
That protocol doesn't exist because of the time that we're in. We know therapy. People are seeking therapy more. People are trying to, get checked up more. It's raised the level of concern.
Wow.
For people, for our health, for our status. Like, if you're not feeling well, your job is like, hey, don't even come anywhere near here because you might have the vid. You might have COVID. Like, the level of concern is raised, but at the same time, it's made us decline in communication skills with people.
Ooh.
That's what I want to say. In certain instances, we long for that connection still, but when we do come back from COVID, it's like, will we still be able to have it?
I think, like, for me, like, I'm a big hugger, and then like I have to be conscious now,
right?
And ask the individual that I'm about to hug,
right?
Is it okay for me to give you hugs? And one thing I realized, people stop saying how have a good day.
Right.
People start saying be safe.
Be safe,
Yes.
right?
So
that's
from
whole
a
nother different
social
thing.
perspective, our conversations
Right.
are now changing,
Right.
not just being, hey, lovable, but yo, when you go out
Right.
there, please be safe.
Right.
But if you come back with COVID,
Right.
go back out there.
Right.
So I'm a little scared.
Right.
I'm petrified
Right.
that the society is becoming socially inept.
Mm.
And where it's now going to be
Right.
okay for hubs.
I got a point, Ant.
Go ahead.
There's
You going
two.
in?
There's two things. Like, I think for people that were in relationships already,
Yeah.
it made them see what mattered.
Ooh, I love
And
that.
so, like now, more people are marriages on the rise. For people that were not in relationships, it made them realize how lonely they are.
Ooh.
You know, and so now you have this place of like, okay, now I gotta get somebody. Now I gotta rush, but I'm inside. I'm indoors.
And Instagram makes it horrible.
Exactly.
Because if I see, oh damn, whoa, everybody booed up now.
Everybody booed up.
And
I didn't even know they was going on.
Because you know the thing is like typically normally like right now we're in the winter season, right? Technically it's AKA cuffing season. Because you know it's snowing, you know, New York, we've been getting a lot of snow. Please take away that snow.
Exactly.
Please.
Different conversation. But you know, normally because it's cold, we're not going out as much during the winter time.
Right.
That's just how it is in the Northeast. So it's AKA cuffing season. COVID has made it cuffing, not even season, but just cuffing pandemic or whatever how you want to label it as. So to Fred's point, it's like you're people who are not in relationships, they're looking for somebody to partner up with because like you realize like I'm actually lonely. I didn't realize that not having a partner or somebody to basically to be with is affecting me. You know, I miss the comfort of having, we don't have as much options like we used to before because a lot of it's been kind of taken away. We have to be careful. You know, things have opened up, but it's not at full capacity. The clubs are not really open like that, at least not the main ones. Maybe like the underground, stuff like that. But those, they get raided, right? Because they technically shouldn't have.
Or even down to the church.
Down to the church. You know, so there are things that are still very much limited.
Yeah.
Now there are certain states like in Florida, down in Atlanta where it's like it's a free for all. Like
Atlanta's the Hunger Games.
listen,
Let me
yo,
tell you,
we
let me
live
tell
in the
you.
best life out there. Like COVID
Tell
doesn't
you.
really exist, so it's a different atmosphere. But up here, we're in New York, and we're still like you still have to wear a mask everywhere you go, right?
Right.
You know, restaurants are not open up at 100% capacity and where you can't wear your mask. Like it's still very much limited. So dating, if you are single, has been a challenge. You know, and even when it comes, we think about cuffing season, you didn't have to worry about, okay, well, have you been exposed to anybody or, you know, who you've been around? You could just meet up with somebody like, you know, I know this could be my boo for the, you know, for the wintertime.
Yeah.
We could shack up, we could chill, we could do whatever.
My
and
entanglement.
that's it. But now my entanglement. But now that entanglement has changed like when's the last time you got tested? And we ain't talking about STDs. We talking about
COVID.
And that's a real conversation.
Yeah. Because I need to see that COVID test.
Exactly. Like my question is to our listeners is what's your medication? Like what do you do to medicate? This is my medication. Like drinking coffee, you know, having my time in the morning, prayer, you know, walking around.
I was just about to
outside,
go there.
Getting a breath of fresh air. Like we underestimate those things.
We do.
Because we were talking, I was literally transitioning the conversation in that way because we've been talking about lonely. So in my mind, I'm thinking, do we really need a companion to be one? Or can this be a time of understanding our self-care? Or understanding like, before I get this person, you know what? Let me focus on myself. Let me understand of who I am. So when that person does come, he or she, I'm one.
I mean, listen,
I'm whole.
If you're not good for yourself, you can't be good for somebody else.
Come on, talk.
You know, so it is a reflection. It is a self-reflection because we are spending more time to ourselves if you are single, right? So this is a time towards like, okay, you know what? What do I need to work on? Where is my mental health? Am I still dealing with past trauma, past hurt? You know, whether if it's from past relationships, whether if it's from family, whether if it's just whatever it is, just life in general. So if I want that partner,
right.
would I date myself?
Exactly. Talk.
Would I date myself? If I met myself in the street, or it was introduced, would I date myself? Would I tolerate with my temperament?
That's huge.
Would I tolerate with my behavior?
Right.
You know?
Now, would you date yourself, Jeff?
Yeah. Listen, I'm a beautiful guy. Listen.
For the people in the back,
beautiful guy. Listen, they call me LL. Baby LL. You know?
Yo, I just noticed in the sunlight, your eyes are bright.
Listen. Ladies love cool Jeff. I'm just saying.
Right.
Okay.
Would you marry yourself?
Wow.
Most definitely.
He said that without hesitation. I love it.
When you conflict with yourself,
right,
and you know that you took the time to evaluate yourself, you accept your flaws, but you know that you can also become better. There's always room for improvement.
Yeah.
But you know that you strive to be the best person that you can be.
Right.
And you've healed from past hurt, past trauma. You take accountability and responsibility for yourself. Because a lot of times we like to deflect hurt on other people.
Wow.
You know?
That ain't the
so
truth.
when you come to realize like, okay, you know what? I am part of the problem, or I have not been perfect. I'm going to work on that. So I can confidently say that, hey, you know what? I can date myself. If a replica of me was to come and approach, I can date that person because I know what I stand for. I know my morals. I know my values. I know what I've done, and I know what I'm looking for. I know what my long-term goals are as far as what companionship and relationship.
Right.
By the way, Jeff is off the market. Thank you.
Make the disclaimer and make it plain. Make it plain. He got a chocolate princess.
Now, Fred, would you marry yourself?
A couple of years ago, honestly, Anthony, I would probably say no.
Thank you.
Just because I know where I was and I didn't know what I know now about who I am and how comfortable I am in my skin. And I had to tell myself a whole lot that it's okay. You know, I learned through my wife, I learned through you guys that it's okay. You know what I'm saying? And if I didn't have the village I had, if I did not have my wife, if I didn't have my family and how supportive they were, then I, of course, would be a mess. If I didn't have God, like, I would be a mess. Would I date myself? Absolutely. Where I am now. Fred from a couple of years ago, absolutely not. Would I marry myself? Absolutely. Because I know who I am. Just like Jeff. Like, and I was going to say this while Jeff was speaking, is like, when you are a person who knows who you are, not just only in God, but just you know who you are, can't be moved. Like, nobody can trick you out of who you are. It's a harder price. It's a harder process, right? And like dating these days, my advice to anybody out there is definitely to make sure you can date yourself and be patient. First thing that the word says is that love is patient. Be patient and you'll get there. You'll get there. I ain't gonna lie. There's so many mistakes I've made myself because I didn't wait. I didn't want to wait because I saw Instagram, because I saw these people getting hooked up, And in a time like this, it's even worse. It's even worse because it's like I've lived alone. I've been alone, and now it's real. I work from home. I'm here, and I have to deal with me. Yeah. But if you take time to work on yourself, like Jeff was talking about, like if you take time, like, can I date me? Yeah, I'm gonna finally take that trip. I'm gonna finally do those things that I need to do to make sure I'm right. You know, then you'll be good.
Wow. That actually brings me to a point where you're not required to be perfect, but you are required to be accountable.
Can you say that to the people in the back?
One more again.
Side note, I think we should get a shirt that says, can you say that to the people in the back?
You're not copyrighted right today.
So you're not required to be perfect.
Wow.
but you are required to be accountable. You want a successful relationship, a successful marriage.
In your perspective.
In my perspective.
Okay.
My perspective, my opinion, because no one's perfect.
Okay.
Just doesn't exist. There's the 80-20 rule that I think some of us has heard that, where the 80-20 rule, the way it works is that, anybody that you meet, you want to look for that 80% that the person has, right? Because nobody's gonna have 100% what you look for. We're not perfect.
Absolutely.
Only Jesus Christ was perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes that we look at the 20% or we pay attention to 20% of things that we don't have. And I think we do subconsciously without realizing, not only with our relationships, but just in general, with our jobs, with our careers, where we live. We focus on the things that we don't have versus the things that we do have. Mm-hmm. And so you're not required to be perfect, but you're required to be accountable for your actions, accountable for your behavior, accountable for loving and pouring into your partner and lifting up your partner. And your partner obviously should be doing the same thing. Just my truth, opinion, and perspective.
What about you, Fred?
What was the question?
Question is, so he used the word, before you get into a relationship,
mm-hmm.
you should be accountable for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What word would you use before you get into a relationship?
A word that I would use. You mean for yourself that
Correct.
You would use? The only word that just continues to keep popping up is just patience. It's just like it just does not stop popping up, because I feel like we feel we need to be in the know. We need to see what that relationship thing be like. We need to be around somebody. That need, it's not a need, like it's not a need. You got to change that around. Like
change
what do you
language.
need for yourself? You got to change. Yeah, like you said, change your verbiage. The whole words need to change. Like, hey, what do I require of myself?
And I think what I love in this conversation, keep on asking yourself questions.
Yes.
And the word for me is trust. Trust the process. Trust who you are. Trust what you're becoming. Trust what you're going to be living. Trust in yourself. The first person you can trust is yourself, because you can't be accountable if you don't trust yourself. You can't be consistent if you don't trust yourself, because anybody can come in your life, anybody can come in your world, your environment, and switch it. But once you know how to trust yourself, there's expectation that comes out of that.
Absolutely.
There's roles that come out of that. Absolutely. And people will be like, no, I really can't come to that person because he or she knows himself. And while knowing himself, I wanted to switch the topic back to the COVID. Are you guys getting the vaccine?
No comment. I plead the fifth.
And so with me, I actually took the vaccine. I took the first dose. So I took the first dose last week. Yeah, last week. And I'm taking the second dose in a couple of weeks. I feel good. No side effects, nothing. I don't got like
long term.
Yeah, I don't have like an 11th toe and a third nipple.
Allegedly.
Jeff will be a vampire by Thursday.
Listen.
I'm kidding. Jeff, can I get your opinion on it? I'm sorry.
But for me, with the vaccine is, and I'll be honest, like I already explained that I work in the healthcare industry. I work with research. So I've seen from the beginning stage of a lot of these research that was taking place when it comes to different COVID drugs and the vaccine. Not in depth, because I'm not doing the actual research, but I work in the IT side of it, and I work closely with the research department. So we have certain meetings, things like that, not to get into in depth. So I was reluctant on taking the vaccine in the beginning.
Why is that?
One, because, and it's just me just in general, anything that comes out first in the beginning, I always like to wait for the second batch. New iPhone comes out, I'm like, I'm gonna wait for the second batch. You know what I'm saying? That's just me, because I always believe like things may not be created perfectly. There's gonna be malfunctions, things like that. So even with the vaccine, it was the same thing. I want to see how it's gonna affect everyone and see or overall, right? But the more people I talk to, the more research that I've done, things that I've seen, I was like, okay, I'm feeling a bit more confident. And I prayed on it, to be honest. You know, I trust in God, and I was like, okay, you know what? The way I operate, if I feel peace within something, especially as of lately, I know God is driving it, and I know that I'm in good hands. If I feel very suspicious, like this seems sus, I don't rock with it. You know, especially if it's like I said, it's a consistent feeling, it sits heavy. You know, that's usually like the Holy Spirit talking to me. That's how Holy Spirit operates. So when it came to the vaccine, because we were getting the emails, you know, things were done in phases for healthcare workers. It was like the clinicians first, and it went down to like I still work from home. Like I haven't been back into the office, nothing like that at all, because I don't deal with patient care. So we were kind of like more in the last phase as far as healthcare workers to be eligible to take the vaccine. And I was still kind of like on the fence with it, but I'm like, I'm gonna let it sit, pray on it, and see. And I just felt a sense of calm, sense of peace. I was like, you know, I'm gonna go with it. You know, I trust in God in this process. I trust what God is doing, but I also understand why many people who are reluctant taking a vaccine.
When you say many people, can you give a
You mean
a
me?
specific
You mean me?
People like-
a
people like
specific
Fred.
demographic?
I'm probably
Because
not
me
gonna
and
take
Fred
it. Yeah.
is
If you guys don't know, they are black,
African American.
African American,
African American.
Jamaican,
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
So-
Midwestern.
West Indian, all of
So,
that.
From historical, vaccine didn't look a little right for us as African American.
Most definitely.
Tuskegee experiments.
Um,
Eugenics.
facts.
Look, need I go on? Like,
Facts.
so you now say, you know, and that is historical.
yeah.
Correct.
It's in American history.
Correct.
Right.
So you took the vaccine
Yeah.
and
With all that in mind.
with
Right.
all that in mind.
All
Right.
that in mind, because I'm very much aware.
So my question now to you is,
Mhm.
for me, in my perspective, should we take the vaccine?
This is what I would encourage people. I would never force or encourage people to take the vaccine. I will encourage people to continue to follow the protocols of social distancing, wearing your mask.
Mm.
That's how I look at it as.
Okay.
Because I understand, especially with our history when it comes to vaccination,
Mm-hmm.
why we are hesitant. And I don't blame people. I don't blame our community because I felt the same way, to be honest.
Right.
You know, it's a hard place because you're in healthcare.
Mhm.
So you see the need and the requirements of vaccines. Because, you know, let's be real, there's not only just the COVID vaccine, there's a flu vaccine, there's all the different, you know, the MMR, measles, mumps, and I can't remember what the R is for, sorry. But there's all these different vaccines that we could take, right? Chickenpox, so forth. So I understand the requirement or the need for it, but I also understand why we are very reluctant because we have been used as guinea pigs, if we're going to be honest.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
America, white America, we're honest, has not been kind to us and uses as like, okay, as experiments. Or let's go ahead and actually inject these, you know, vaccines into the black community. The Tuskegee experiment, just like he was saying, with syphilis being injected into African Americans
Mhm.
purposely. You know, so there's no question. So I always encourage people, that's why I would encourage people to take it, at least social distance. At least do the requirements, not only to protect yourself, but to protect other people.
Right.
But do your homework, do your research. Don't just look at what somebody posts on social media and then go with it. You know what I'm saying? You know, do your research, credible research, so you know, like, okay, is this for me? And if it's not, and what everything always boils down to is the cliche thing to say, listen, but it's real. Pray to God, trust in God, ask him for his wisdom, ask him for his guidance on this.
So trust in God, trust in wisdom.
Most definitely.
That's great.
As a Christian man, I'm always going to run with that.
Now, what about the government stating that if you do not take the vaccine, you cannot work or you cannot travel? How do you feel about that? Because I'm noticing
Right.
it trickles. The conversation begins to change.
Right.
They start saying, if you took the vaccine, you don't have to do 2 weeks no more.
Correct.
Conversations are now changing.
Correct.
And now, who is responsible, or is the government, the jobs, the companies, who is responsible to say you have to take the vaccine? Because in my feeling or my perspective, if I as a human state that I do not want to take this vaccine, that is my right.
Correct.
I don't think that should be forced on me in regards to take the vaccine.
Now, I don't think
I really think it's gonna go that way.
Now, see, I don't think one, we don't have enough vaccines currently, right now, at least,
Correct.
to where we could vaccinate the whole population. Two, nothing that we take is 100% guaranteed.
Correct.
They go based off the vast majority. So I think like Pfizer, for an example, right? And please correct me if I'm wrong. Those who are listening, I think it's a 94% effective rate, which means that if you take this vaccine, there's a 94% chance that you will not get COVID, basically, right? Because that's the whole point of the vaccine. There's no vaccine, there's no medication, there's no even herbal natural medicine that you're going to take is going to be 100% effective. There's always going to be some form of side effects. And this is not me trying to defend the vaccine. Again, I want to make it clear. It's up to you. Just do your homework, do your research. But at least the bare minimum, wear your mask.
Okay.
At least, if you don't feel comfortable. So now go back to your questions regarding the government and jobs. So with jobs, I can see jobs forcing employees to take it and using that as like, if you don't take it, we could fire you, because there was a recent story. There was a lady who was actually fired for, I think she was working at a restaurant, something like that. And she said she was waiting. She wanted to wait to take the vaccine. She says she's not against it. She just wanted to wait, but her job basically fired her, right? When you work for a private company, you at the mercy of whatever that company wants you to do. And obviously different states have different regulation when it comes to like, what's the word I'm looking for? Protection for employees. But if you work for a private company, if I own like a mom and pop store,
right,
unless you can prove that it's discrimination based off your race, gender, or religion, I can fire you for whatever reason, right? You could come in 2 minutes late and I'm like, you know what? You're done.
Because they're thinking about liability.
Correct. There's no, like, you don't have job protection like that. So I can see where companies would do that. I think what people just have to go ahead and do is that I don't see the government, because I don't think the government really has that type of power. I think there'll be so many lawsuits that they may put it out there. I just don't see where they could force every single person that if you don't take the vaccine, you can't be out in public, or you can't do nothing.
It's crazy.
So now we trickle it down a little bit. So
Yeah.
not the government, but the states.
Yeah.
So if you work in Jersey, if you work in New York City, if you work in Atlanta, it depends on the state.
Correct.
Stating that
It'll be at the state level first before anything. And even with that, like I said, because of private companies, because some private companies are like, listen, I don't want to require my employees to wear, to get the vaccine. Those are lawsuits. So that's what they can't really force. Now they may put incentives.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, if you have a certain amount of employees vaccinated, we'll give you like a tax write-off, tax credit.
Absolutely.
Things like that, right?
Yeah.
There's loopholes and ways
I'm
around
starting to
things.
see that, like, say, for example, I know that there's a company that gave their employees a $125 gift card if they took a vaccine.
Correct.
So now if I'm seeing that as the CEO of a company and I'm saying, wow, it increased the amount of people in regards to the vaccine, maybe I should do that as well.
Right.
So you might get a free car, or you might get a week or 2 week vacation if you take the vaccine.
Correct.
So you're subconsciously saying you don't have any rights at this moment. Your human body doesn't have any rights. I'm going to tell you what to do. Is that right?
I agree but disagree.
Okay.
I agree but disagree.
This is the best time to talk about it.
Yes. But yes, the thing we have to remember is that as long as we're working for somebody, we're under their mercy. They dictate how much we get paid. They dictate when we get paid. They dictate our hours, everything. So whatever they want you to do, listen. How many times that we apply for a job, we look at the job description, and it's like, all right, you're going to be doing this, this, and this, and this. When you start working at that job, there are things that's being added on that was not part of what you got hired for. But you got no choice to do it unless you want that paycheck. So to your point, that can easily happen, right? We're at the mercy of our employer. Not saying this is right at all, because I feel like people should have the option, obviously, to take the vaccine or not take the vaccine. I don't think the government, the state, or anybody should force it, because there are, again, anything that we take is not 100%. So that means with Pfizer, for an example, it's 94% effective rate from the last time that I checked. So which means there's still a 6% measure where somebody can take it and it's not affected. You know what I mean? Or it's not. They're not going to get the full effects of that vaccine, which means they can have some type of bad allergic reaction, serious complications. Those are things that's always going to take place. You could take Tylenol, it's the same thing. You could take aspirin, it's the same thing. You know, there's no matter what you take or you put into your body, we know people who's allergic to shellfish. You know what I'm saying? And if they eat shellfish, their throat's going to swell up. They can't breathe. They have to get some type of injection or whatever it is. But obviously, the vast majority could probably eat it, or a good majority, over 50% basically, and they're good. So there's always going to be that percentage where it's like, yes, you may receive some type of allergic or maybe even deadly. I'm not saying the vaccine is deadly, but those are things that are a possibility. So that's why I don't think, but we know the government is the government, could really force, I think, because there's so much lawsuits. Remember, it's not just us that has to take the vaccine. It's every American that's pushing it. So we know the power that white America has. And we've seen how much like they fought about not wearing masks, this, that, and the third. And they are certain states. Obviously in New York, you got to wear your mask, right? New York City, you got to wear your mask. In Jersey, you got to wear your mask. You go down to Florida, it's optional. I have family in Florida. It's optional. Atlanta, you see how they're getting down in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
Yo, again, they're living their best life. It's optional.
Okay.
So
I just think as an employee, I should have, and say what you just said, I should have an option.
Yeah.
I don't think when I sign that paper, I'm saying to myself, I'm a slave and I have no right and I can't speak for my human body and being able to say, hey, I don't really believe in that.
It's like when you going to go like get your license or your ID and they ask if you want to be an organ donor. And what if they just said like, oh, you're an organ donor.
Good point.
You're an organ donor. That's just like,
Definitely.
no matter what you say or do, you're going to be an organ donor. And yeah, that's kind of troublesome.
And currently with my job right now, real quick, because I'm in healthcare, they're not forcing anybody to take the vaccine. It is still technically optional. And you're talking about healthcare workers who are working with COVID patients.
Wow. With so many perspectives, with so many opinions, with so many truth. Thank you. Wow. Part 2. Podcast 2.
Yeah.
How you guys feeling, man?
Good, man.
I'm feeling great. You know what I'm saying?
This is what we do all the time, man.
It's all a matter of time.
This is what we do all the time.
Yo, I hope you guys are listening out there. Because we brought to bring some more heat.
Yeah.
So,
fire.
Have a good one. Be great. And always remember, self-care is the best care.
Yeah.